CJ Flyer back with the fire, another YouTube video. It is official. Jimmy Butler has made it known he wants out of the Miami Heat organization and he is willing to go to any NBA team in the league. He says he can make them a contender. Does not matter who it is. He just wants to find the joy in playing basketball again. And this is despite his agent coming forward earlier saying that the reports from Shams were false. This is despite Pat Riley saying we are not going to be trading Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler comes forward and says, hey, all the different colors of my hair, yeah, that was definitely me signaling I want to get out of here. I want to go to a different team. Make it happen, Pat Riley. I want out. So, we've had a couple Jimmy Butler videos before, but of course that was just based on some rumors from Shams Charania and his sources, but there was no confirmation from Jimmy Butler's camp, and now Jimmy Butler himself has come forward and said, hey, get me out of here. In addition to that, some fun stats here that I saw on the NBA subreddit is Jimmy Butler, since Pat Riley declared that the Heat were not going to trade him, he has averaged 9 points per game on 5.5 field goal attempts per game with only two free throw attempts. That is the huge one, actually. You know, Jimmy Butler's a guy, kind of grit and grind, drive to the hoop sort of player. Only 2 free throw attempts per game, averaging 26 minutes in each of those games with 0 minutes played in the fourth quarter. Yeah, Jimmy Butler's quit on this team. This is like borderline Vince Carter with the Raptors situation from 20 years ago. This is insane. So Jimmy Butler, quiet quitting on the Miami Heat, wants out. And I thought for fun today, we just do a fake trade video. We do a fake trade to every single team in the league since Jimmy Butler says, hey, I'm willing to go anywhere. I can make any team a winning team. Okay, Jimmy Butler, we'll look at a fake trade to every team in the league. So keep in mind, I threw these all together in less than 30 minutes. So a lot of them are going to be kind of iffy. And I especially want to make note of the fact that as a Dallas Mavericks fan, I do not endorse that the Mavericks make the trade that I have set up for them. In fact, a 1-to-1 trade between the Mavs and the Heat is very unlikely to even happen in real life. It just financially is not really going to work out very well. I just got to preface that. I don't endorse it. Please don't do it, Mavs. But anyways, you guys let me know which trades you like the most and which you like the least in the comments down below. And without further ado, every single team, starting off with the Cleveland Cavaliers, the best team in the NBA. There is no way they would make the trade for Jimmy Butler, but if they did, here's a trade they could do. You get Max Strus back to the Miami Heat, Karis LeVert, you got Isaac Okoro, and of course, the main reason the Cavs would not go through with this trade, Dean Wade, fan favorite. Why would the Cavs trade Dean Wade? Come on now. No, but for real, here's the trade. And according to the Fanspo trade machine, +6 wins for the Miami Heat in this trade. So, of course, you got to throw in some draft picks for the Cavs. Again, I don't know why the Cavs would do this. They wouldn't do this. They wouldn't do it. All right, next one. Celtics and Heat. This one's nearly impossible to formulate any kind of coherent trade because the Celtics are a team over the second, into the second apron, the tax apron. So for anyone that's not familiar, basically the Celtics can't aggregate players to get players back. So they can't trade more than one player to get a player in return. And in this case, they can't trade 2 role players for Jimmy Butler. They have to go 1-to-1, or in this case, we went 1 Jimmy Butler for 2 Heat players to make the contracts work. So we're just assuming that Jaylen Brown is going to combust in the next week or two and goes off the rails and says, I want out of Boston, even though he's the finals MVP and the team is arguably the best team in the East. So former finals MVP Jaylen Brown getting traded for Jimmy Butler in that Celtics trade. Here's one with the Knicks. I heard the Knicks are looking for a new center. Also that Mitchell Robinson is injury prone. So the Knicks get a young center in Kelly Ware. They get Jimmy Butler, and they give up injury-prone OG Anunoby and Mitchell Robinson. They also give up Cameron Payne. All right, next one. Orlando Magic. This one, honestly, this isn't that bad of a trade, is it? Okay, first of all, I also have to say, the Heat have little to no leverage at this point, it feels like. They're kind of in a tough spot. Because even though this is the last year of Jimmy Butler's contract, he has a player option, and he's likely going to lock in with that player option. and go, it's free money. Why wouldn't he take it? He's just going to force the Heat's hand. They have to trade him at some point. So the Heat don't have much leverage, and Jimmy Butler's contract is huge. So I actually think trades like this could be a little bit more realistic given the scenario that we're in. But again, this trade, Magic give up Jonathan Isaac, who's on a huge deal, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope for Jimmy Butler. Throwing some draft picks in there if you want, but that's the trade. Next one, the Milwaukee Bucks. This one I don't think is realistic at all. The Bucks would not do this. Brook Lopez is 36 years old, but he is still a huge contributor to the Bucks' success. That being said, he's 36 years old, so threw him in, through Chris Middleton, through an Andre Jackson Jr. to make the contracts work, and then the Heat give up a couple of their young bigs and Jimmy Butler to the Milwaukee Bucks. Next trade on the list, the Atlanta Hawks. Again, we're going 1-for-1 with the centers here, and 1-for-1 with the small forwards. So the Hawks get Jimmy Butler, Kelly Ware. The Heat get Clint Capella, DeAndre Ayton. Again, the Heat don't have as much leverage here, but if you wanted to, you could throw in a Hawks draft pick or two, I guess, to make things work. Next would be the Heat and Pacers. This one's definitely not going to happen, but we got a 1-for-1 Jimmy Butler, Pascal Siakam. Next one, the Detroit Pistons. You got Tobias Harris, veteran player, not quite as old as Jimmy Butler, but he can still be a key contributor on your team. You got Tim Hardaway Jr. here to make the contracts work out, and you throw in some draft picks to get Jimmy Butler into Detroit. Next, we got the Chicago Bulls, the return for Jimmy Butler. And wouldn't this be, is this the second time, right? Yeah, the second time that Butler and LaVine are traded for each other. Am I remember that right? I don't know, it's been a few years. But Zach LaVine, who's been on the trading block for quite some time, or at least in trade rumors, sent to Miami with Chris Duarte and a couple of draft picks for Jimmy Butler. The 76ers, Paul George for Jimmy Butler, basically, and we had to throw in another player to make the trade work, but nonetheless, there it is. Basically 1-for-1, Jimmy Butler, Paul George. The Brooklyn Nets dumping off the contract of Ben Simmons, but then also adding in the elite young scorer in Cam Thomas and a couple draft picks to bring Jimmy Butler to Brooklyn and make them a competitive team in the East once again. The Toronto Raptors, this one, I actually could, if I spent more time in this, I could probably come up with a better trade. That's why I threw in a ton of draft picks here, because a lot of these guys, being on expiring contracts, it just doesn't make much sense. But I guess since you're getting all these draft picks, it kind of works out. This would be like a rebuild move for the Heat. You get Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, the return of Kelly Olynyk, and Chris Boucher for some first-round draft picks for Jimmy Butler. The Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets finally get rid of the controversial signing of Miles Bridges, send him to Miami. Miami gets the other Martin brother, or twin, if you will. So they no longer have Caleb Martin, who signed with the Sixers. So now they get Cody Martin. They get Grant Williams. They get a couple of draft picks for Jimmy Butler. Washington Wizards. This one would actually put the Miami Heat in a really good position. Getting Kyle Kuzma and Jonas Valanciunas, who... that signing, when it happened, I figured that's got to be a trade piece later on. I don't see the Wizards not trading Jonas at some point before February. I just find that hard to believe. But nonetheless, here's a trade here. Marvin Bagley, just to make the contracts work. Obviously, he's not that good of a player as we all thought he might have been years ago during the draft in 2018. But hey, throw him in to make the contracts work. The Oklahoma City Thunder, I don't know why they would do this, but Sam Presti, trying to rack up the draft picks, goes ahead, throws in Lou Dort, Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, Jalen Williams, the worst of the two Jalen Williams. This is the better of the two Jalen Williams. Excuse me. Yeah, they would not do this trade. Oh my goodness, I might need to... Don't look at this trade. This is the worst trade on the list. Don't look at it. Actually, I take that back, because you're going to see the Mavs in a second. That might be the worst trade on this list. All right, the Grizzlies, Desmond Bane and Brandon Clark for Jimmy Butler and a draft pick. The Rockets, this one would... I just don't agree with this -1 wins here for the Rockets. Again, I don't think the Rockets should trade for Jimmy Butler, but I also don't think a trade of Fred VanVleet for Jimmy Butler would make the team worse necessarily, outside the fact that they'd have a lot of players at that forward position at that point. I just don't think Fred VanVleet is that much of a. I mean, Houston fans, you tell me. Maybe I'm just being naive here. But I would rather be paying Jimmy Butler this much money than paying Fred VanVleet this much money, in my opinion. Just without looking at the stat, I could be completely wrong. I'm not as tuned into the Rockets as some people are. The Nuggets, rumor that Michael Porter Jr. would be given up, or he's in trade rumors. This trade would accomplish that, giving up Michael Porter Jr. and some bench players for Jimmy Butler to get him to the Denver Nuggets, and then you would have the trio of Russell Westbrook, Jimmy Butler, and Nikola Jokic. What a move that would be. All right, this is the one that I said a 1-to-1 trade is just nearly impossible because the Mavs have to give up all of their depth to get Jimmy Butler in here, unless you're giving up one of Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively, which I would definitely not want them to do. I also don't think they should give up PJ Washington, but that's the only way it would really work financially. It's one of PJ or Gafford, it's just how it works, unfortunately. So this is the trade. I hate it. Absolutely despise it. Miami doesn't have many draft picks to give up. Like, they could throw in maybe 1 or 2 first-round picks to try to even things out. No. Don't do this, Mavs. Don't do it. Clippers. Norman Powell's been on a tear recently, but in order to make this work, they'd probably have to throw him in unless they're giving up Kawhi Leonard. So you have Norman Powell, PJ Tucker, who's been refusing to play for the Clippers, so that's also to make the finances work. Derrick Jones Jr., the return to Miami. You got Chris Dunn, Nicholas Batum, Bones Highland, all for Jimmy Butler, Jaime Hawkins Jr., and Alec Burks. And then for the Lakers, of course, we got to get the big three of LeBron, Jimmy Butler, and Anthony Davis. And for fun, we went ahead and threw in Kevin Love. And then also another narrative on this trade is Bronny James, the GM, sends him away, goes to Miami. Get out of here, Bronny. You've been a failure of a son to me. No, I'm just kidding. But Gabe Vincent returning to Miami. Obviously, you got some good players in Austin Reeves and Jared Vanderbilt to Miami. And then the Lakers just get a bunch of big names in return. So then you got, like I said, LeBron, Jimmy Butler, Anthony Davis, Kevin Love on the same roster, which in 2018 would look pretty solid, or 2016 would look pretty solid, but in today's NBA, probably not so much. The Timberwolves, the return of Jimmy Butler. This trade would have to happen, I believe, in the following offseason because of when Gobert signed his extension. And the only other way we could get a Timberwolves trade to work is with Anthony Edwards, and that is because the Timberwolves are a second tax apron team, so they cannot aggregate players, because I was trying to package together Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, but that is impossible. The Timberwolves can't do that. So we got Rudy Gobert and Rob Dillingham for Jimmy Butler and Jaime Hawkins Jr., the return again of Jimmy Butler to Timberwolves. And I'm sure the Timberwolves would kind of be okay with this in the sense that I don't think Rudy Gobert's a long-term solution. And the spacing's all really clogged up right now with Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert on the floor at the same time. All right, San Antonio, Keldon Johnson, Harrison Barnes, and some draft picks for Jimmy Butler on the Spurs with Chris Paul and Wembanyama. The Warriors getting their big four lineup of Stephen Curry, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, Kevin Love, all on the same team for Andrew Wiggins, Buddy Hield, who's really been struggling recently. This is like a sell low for the Warriors. And then Gary Payton and Kevon Looney. The Phoenix Suns, we talked about them before. There's not a lot of good trades that would work out. I think Suns fans would be very happy with this because they also get Yusuf Nurkic off the books. And I know from after the suspension in the fight with Najee Marshall, it appears some Suns fans were actually happy with Nurkic getting suspended, to my surprise. So, and again, to my surprise, just because of the fact that the Suns don't have a lot of depth at the center position. I guess they'd rather run small than have Nurkic on the floor, which is pretty funny to hear. But there you go. The Heat also get Tyus Jones in there. I don't know why the Heat would do this because Bradley Beal has an extra year on his contract, and it's the worst contract in the NBA by far. Outside of maybe, you can't even say the Ben Simmons trades or Ben Simmons contract is worse because he's only got 1 year left. But Bradley Beal still got 3 years at this crazy amount. Sacramento Kings, they've been struggling recently. We already know about their struggles. Fired their coach. The ownership and management has not been available for interview to discuss the move, which makes it even more controversial. So they make a move here, trade for Jimmy Butler, giving up DeMar DeRozan, Kevin Huerter, and Jimmy Butler has to eat his words because there is no way he's making the Kings a contender. I'm just saying it right now. The Trailblazers, we got Jimmy Butler and Jovic for dominating DeAndre Ayton. Denny, we got a couple draft picks in there too to even things out for the Miami Heat. I don't know why the Heat would do this, but it is a trade. It gets them some draft picks. There you go. Utah Jazz. I don't know why the Jazz would do this, but again, just doing a trade for every single team. We got John Collins, Jordan Clarkson, and some draft picks. Go ahead, throw more draft picks in if you want, but it's Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge is known for fleecing teams, so maybe he doesn't even have to throw a draft pick in for this. And then last but not least, the New Orleans Pelicans. Come on down. We got Zion Williamson. He's on the trading block. Obviously, Brandon Williams. You could switch Zion out for Brandon Ingram. You could switch them out to put Ingram in this deal here. But you got Zion paired with Herb Jones, who is obviously an elite defender in the league. Great perimeter defender. You got for Jimmy Butler, Alec Burks, and some draft picks. I don't know why New Orleans would do this. This would be a great move for the Heat, obviously. Whether it's Zion or Brandon Ingram, I think it's a net positive for the Heat. I don't think it's just a +1 win. Maybe if you switch Herb Jones out with a different player for a similar contract value, perhaps it's a little bit of a different story, but this is the trade I came up with quickly here for the Pelicans. Let me know again which trade you think is the best, which you think is the worst, how you would change up the trades. Let me know in the comments section down below. This Jimmy Butler saga has gotten wild. Him with all the different hair colors, which people assume meant different teams that he was interested in being traded to. Perhaps that is actually the truth, given that he has now made it publicly known in a press conference live he wants out of Miami. Absolutely insane. Again, share your thoughts in the comments down below and click one of the videos on your screen now for some more NBA discussion.